Dorothy Sayers, in her book, The Mind of the Maker, makes a distinction between opinion and law. She wants to criticize people who are moral relativists, people who think that morality and the human laws that derive from that morality and with which we order human society, that all of it is made up by human beings. Today the argument goes something like this. Moral relativists would like you to think that moral principles and the human laws that we derive from those principles to order society, that all of that exists for one purpose, to ensure human survival. That morality and law are the products of our adaptations to our environment, to ensure our survival, to ensure our procreation, to ensure our thriving. Now, the Roman Catholic Church, and Sayers would agree with this, they're going to argue that this is a dangerous line of thinking. Why? Well, if morality is based on survival, if laws are based on survival, then such morals, such laws, are going to favor those best able to survive. And the powerful who frame them, people who are socially powerful, economically powerful, politically powerful, they're going to frame the morals and the laws that come from those morals to favor themselves and people like them, people who have the economic power, the political power, the social power to survive and move forward. People who cannot keep up, people who lack social, political, and economic power, they get left behind. So, what does the Roman Catholic Church want to argue? What does Sayers want to argue? They're going to say that if you want a morality that is a true morality, one that serves all, if you want laws that are just, that give everybody their due, weak as well as strong, you need to base it on God. Because God alone can be relied upon, trusted, to provide eternal foundations, permanent foundations, by which morality can be applicable to all. And the laws that we derive from that morality, that too is applicable to all. Why is that? Because God Himself sets a moral order that God Himself follows. God is not going to murder, therefore we don't. God is not going to steal, therefore we won't. God is not going to lie, therefore we won't. And why do we need this moral order in God's hands, ultimately speaking? Well, because we're not always strong. There are times where we are weak. There are times when we are vulnerable. We need protection from the lesser angels of our nature, or shall we say the demons of our nature. We need to protect ourselves from one another's bad habits, vices. We need to also have the incentive, through reason and revelation, to help and love one another, that the strong find their justification in their helping the weak. So, how does the Roman Catholic Church, how does Dorothy Sayers understand law properly understood? A law that serves all, based on a morality that serves all. Well, we've sketched that on the board. There are three related but different types of law: human, natural, and divine. The human law, what Dorothy Sayers calls the moral code, is any written law. It can be as properly basic to our republic as the Constitution. It can be something that is local to our own needs, like the Benedictine University Mesa rulebook. It can be something intermediate, the city charter that governs Mesa and the laws that flow from that, the Constitution of the state of Arizona and the laws that flow from that, the federal laws that flow from our U.S. Constitution, our Bill of Rights and our amendments. All of those fall under the category of human law. However, there is another type of human law called human custom. It's unwritten law, but as Thomas Aquinas points out, it has the force of written law because human custom are habits. Habits which order the human mind and order the human will. And because it has social impact amongst all people, it carries the force of law. Here's a simple example. In rural areas, if you come across an unmarked four-way stop, a four-way intersection, you stop. Even if you have no traffic coming, you stop. Why? That is a custom. Why the custom? Because it habituates you to be safe, so that when there is oncoming traffic, you know not to lunge forward, but as a matter of habit, you stop, and therefore you are safe. Also, when you have oncoming traffic, and let's say you arrive at the intersection at the same time, custom dictates that you defer to the person on your right. That is done out of courtesy, that is done for safety. Again, this is custom. It's an unwritten rule to ensure our safety. Sure, it may have been written into the law later, but it opened with custom. Many of our treasured democratic traditions began as custom. The ability for us to meet, sit down, and debate and discuss, following an order. That began as a custom, which we wrote down later into law. The President of the United States, he has a cabinet to help him run the executive branch. It's not written in the Constitution. It is a custom that is developed. But because it helps the President govern better, it has force of law. Now, what is the natural law from which human law and human custom gets derived from? The natural law is human participation in the divine law. To put it another way, the natural law does not come from you looking at a tree and deciding what is legal or not, what is moral or not. Natural law is the human capacity through reason to arrive at the same moral principles over and over and over and over and over again, no matter where one lives, no matter when one lived. To put it another way, when you look at what historians have written, when you look at anthropologists, what they have written, they reach the same conclusion. Human beings, assuming that they lack cognitive dysfunction, assuming that they're in a society that is reasonably healthy, they arrive at the same moral conclusions, the same basic moral principles from which all other morality and laws come from. Most societies agree throughout history that it's wrong to murder innocent life. Most societies agree throughout history that it is wrong to steal. Most societies agree throughout history that it is wrong to lie and slander one's neighbor. Most societies agree throughout history that one must remain faithful in the marriage bond. Really? Well, what about those societies which allow plural marriages? Interesting you ask. Even in societies that allow for multiple spouses, there is an expectation of fidelity between the husband and those multiple wives. Now, of course, I'm not endorsing polygamy, but I'm making the point that marriage fidelity, whether it is between one spouse and a husband and many wives, or one husband and one wife, which is just and Christian, that is something that has been held throughout history, this expectation of fidelity in marriage. My point is, the fact that we have been able to, throughout history, around the world, reach those same basic moral principles, that is natural law. The fact that someone like Confucius, in the 6th century before Jesus Christ, was able to discern and agree to those moral virtues that the Greeks believed in and argued for. And remember, the Greeks had no communication at all, perhaps through a trader or two, but they had no communication at all with Confucius. You had this independent development of the principles of virtue. That shows you the existence of a natural law. Now, why were human beings able to consistently argue for, consistently discover these moral principles over and 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 over again? That's because natural law is our human participation, our human reason in the divine law, which is eternal. To put it another way, the fact that the divine law is permanent, the fact that the divine law is eternal, is the reason why human beings, no matter where we live, no matter which epoch in history we lived in, that is why we're able to discern those moral principles. Don't murder, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat on your spouse, over and over and over and over again. The exceptions in history prove the rule, like those headhunting tribes in Papua New Guinea. And that is why we're able to have a reliable, eternal source for human law. Why we're able to discern through reason eternal moral principles that our human law can reflect. And there's more. The divine law through revelation gives us the commandments of God, the Beatitudes as preached by Jesus Christ in Matthew and Luke's Gospel, and you also have the laws of nature, the fact that nature itself has an order. We see it through the natural sciences, physics, chemistry, biology. These things point to an order that God has established. Can God square a circle? No. Does that make God less than almighty? Well, no. When we say that God is almighty, we say that there is no limit externally on God's power. But God can limit himself. He can create a natural order that he himself respects. As St. Anselm says, God will not violate his own justice. So circles remain circles and squares remain squares. God respects the very order that he establishes. And when it comes to ethics, God is not going to violate his own commandments. We do not murder because God models not murdering. We do not steal because God models not stealing. When God kills in the Bible, it's always justified on the basis of someone's lack of righteousness. But God is slow to anger and rich in kindness for those who show mercy, for those who repent and ask for God's mercy and love. And we model that accordingly, balancing justice with mercy in our laws, in imitation of the order that God has given us.